To understand Yahya's mistakes, we must go back to what he inherited. In March 1969, Ayub Khan stepped down amid mass protests and constitutional breakdown. The country was bitterly divided, politically, regionally, and ethnically, between the populous east and the power center in West Pakistan. Yahya Khan, the army's professional soldier, assumed power and promised to return the country to civilian rule. He set elections for December 1970, the first free nationwide vote in Pakistan's history. The Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, won an overwhelming majority in East Pakistan. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's PPP dominated many seats in the West. That result should have been a turning point for democracy. A civilian government formed from election results. Instead, the results became the first domino in a political crisis. Here is the first major decision for which Yahya bears responsibility. After the election, his government, in concert with West-based political leaders, delayed and obstructed the transfer of power to the Awami League. Instead of facilitating the democratic transition, Yahya and others pushed for political bargaining and legalistic delays that inflamed East Pakistani demands for autonomy and recognition. Put plainly, a free elections result was not implemented. That breakdown of democracy, not some abstract conspiracy, opened the path to violence. On 25 March 1971, Yahya Khan authorized Operation Searchlight, a military crackdown in East Pakistan intended to crush political dissent. The operation targeted political leaders, students, intellectuals, and whole neighborhoods. What began as a political crisis became a brutal military suppression campaign. Let's talk about evidence and scale. International diplomats and eyewitnesses sent urgent warnings. The U.S. consulate in Dhaka, led by Archer Blood, reported atrocities and distress in Cable Ed, Washington, calling attention to mass killings. Those cables later became known as the Blood Telegram, and the book The Blood Telegram documents how U.S. policymakers chose geostrategy over denouncing the violence. Responsibility flows up. The army carried out the operations. The commander-in-chief, Yahya Khan, had appointed and directed the structure that executed it. The chain of command ran to his office. Multiple investigations and historians place responsibility for initiating and permitting the crackdown squarely at the top. How many were killed? Numbers vary, and the figures are politically charged. The Pakistani Hamoodur Rahman Commission, established after the war, was constrained in scope, but concluded that atrocities and excesses occurred and criticized senior military conduct. International scholars and Bangladeshi sources estimate much higher death tolls. Whatever the precise number, the human cost, deaths, rapes, and displacement of millions was catastrophic and a moral rupture for Pakistan. On-screen note, Hamoodur Rahman Commission criticized army conduct, recommended trials for senior officers. Independent demographic studies estimate hundreds of thousands of fatalities, contested among scholars and governments. Yahya is often described as a military man who made military decisions, but his failures were political in nature. He misread the legitimacy crisis, mismanaged negotiations, and chose suppression over accommodation. By prioritizing containment and a centralized solution, he widened the political chasm, and in doing so, he transformed a political dispute into an existential crisis for Pakistan. Instead of using the election result as the basis for a constitutional settlement, a power transfer that respected the democratic mandate, Yahya allowed and encouraged bargaining that disenfranchised the winning party in the East. That is not a tactical mistake. That is a strategic political error. Yahya's choices were amplified by international politics. The Nixon administration, preoccupied with opening to China, backed Pakistan strategically, even as reports of atrocities came in. Gary Bass's The Blood Telegram documents how Washington's policymakers prioritized geostrategy over condemning violence, giving the Yahya regime diplomatic cover at a crucial moment. That does not absolve Yahya, it explains the environment. But the orders, the decisions to deploy troops in cities and to treat a political movement as a military insurgency, those were Pakistani choices. In December 1971, after India's direct intervention, the Eastern Command surrendered. The Hamoodur Rahman Commission later criticized the military leadership, including Yahya, for professional and moral failings, even suggesting that the surrender was premature and accusing senior officers of grave misconduct. The commission recommended trials for key officers and explicitly highlighted Yahya's role in the political and military debacle. From the commission, the military's involvement in running the government had led to corruption, loss of professional competence. The conduct during the war was shameful. Beyond immediate human tragedy and the territorial loss, 1971 infused Pakistan's politics with a deeper institutional damage. It reinforced a pattern in which the military remained the ultimate political arbiter. Yahya's rule began as a promise to restore civilian government, but his choices entrenched the perception that force, not electoral politics, decided the country's future. The Hamoodur Report, contemporary commentators and later historians argued that the 1971 debacle deepened the institutional weakness of Pakistan's democratic order. The paradox, a regime born promising democracy, ended up weakening the very possibility of durable democracy in Pakistan. Did Pakistani journalists investigate this? One prominent voice is Hamid Mir, who has repeatedly argued that authoritarian regimes produce the country's darkest moments. Mir has publicly said the darkest regimes were those without democracy and has urged accountability for 1971 failures. While Mir is not a historian of the Hamoodur Report, he has used his platform to emphasize lessons. Censorship, state control of information, and failure to hold powerful institutions accountable contributed to the disaster. Hamid Mir's stance is an example of Pakistani journalism urging reflection and accountability, but journalists alone cannot replace judicial or political reckoning. So, what do we learn from Yahya Khan's era? 4 blunt lessons. Elections must be respected. The refusal to implement a clear electoral mandate is the root political sin of 1971. Militarizing politics warps institutions. When the army substitutes force for political negotiation, mistakes become existential. Transparency and accountability matter. The suppression of information, censorship, and impunity made it easier for atrocities to be hidden and for responsibilities to be evaded. International geopolitics can enable domestic crimes but do not absolve leaders. Foreign backing or tolerance may encourage bad choices, but decision makers are still accountable. General Yahya Khan's legacy is not a single headline. It is a series of decisions, political miscalculations, a turn to military suppression, and leadership failures that cost lives and reshaped a nation. Understanding that history honestly is essential if Pakistan is to avoid repeating the worst of it. This documentary is a journalistic and educational presentation created for public awareness and historical discussion. All information, opinions, and analyses presented in this video are based on publicly available historical records, journalistic reports, and credible academic sources. The producers have made every effort to ensure factual accuracy. However, absolute accuracy of historical interpretation cannot be guaranteed. The documentary does not intend to defame, disrespect, or promote hostility toward any individual, institution, political party, or community. Please keep watching our channel and subscribe and comment.